Hey there, sixth graders. I'm obviously not at school today, so let's go through, talk about what it is that you're supposed to be working on um, since I'm not there. So let's go through an overview of the activities today, and then we're gonna do a slide or two of notes here together. So that's gonna be first, right? So we're gonna go through, do some notes today. We haven't done notes yet in this unit, so I'll explain how that's gonna work here in just a moment. I'm gonna check to see that those notes are done, right? So that's part of the requirement today is that you have those notes done. So I'm going to check for completion, 5 points to show me that you are doing what you're supposed to do during class to get it done. Second thing is an ed puzzle. It's going over some of the parts of the cell that we will start to learn about this week through notes. It's only going to be half of the video. It's kind of a longer video, so I broke it into two chunks. So we'll do part one this week and part two next week. At the very end, then, if you get through with both of those, oh, by the way, that ed puzzle also due in class, meaning it's due before you leave the classroom. Those two things, the notes and the ed puzzle, should take you 20 minutes, maybe at the most. So there's no reason not to have it done, except if you were not doing what you were supposed to do. So I'm not going to give you an opportunity to redo any of those, the notes or the ed puzzle. So if you are here in class and you're not absent today and you don't do them, you get zeros and you do not get a chance to make those up. So just make sure that you are doing them, right? That's the expectation. Whichever substitute teacher is in there today, be flexible. They're not me. They don't know how our room works. So be flexible, listen to them, do your work. You guys will be fine. All right. So those are the two things you have to get done during class. They have to be completed in class. I'm grading them, and you don't get to make them up. So that's the notes and the ed puzzle. The last thing is kind of a fun one. There is a giant word search on my front table. And that word search is going to be extra credit, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. You'll have some class time to work on it. If you want to sit with someone to work on it, you can. Cannot do partner work with the other two things, the notes or the ed puzzle. But for this, you can. Not big groups, just two people if you want. Or you can do it on your own and start working on that word search. Just kind of a fun activity. We don't usually do these. So it's just kind of a fun activity here. And it'll be for extra credit. And you'll have time to work on it today. And then at the end of class, you should turn it back in. So make sure your name's on it. You're going to turn it back in. And then later this week, I'm going to give you another opportunity to do some more of it. And we'll just see how far you can get with it because it's hard. There's a lot of words and there's a lot of letters. So it's not easy. And so it'll be kind of a good challenge that's fun. And again, it'll go through cells. And so there's a lot of words in there that we're going to see over the next 2 weeks. All right, so that's what we're doing. At this point, if you need to pause the video to open up your class notes doc, there is a doc that is posted in Google Classroom under cells. It says class notes, cell notes. Go ahead, pause the doc, or I'm sorry, pause the video and open up the doc and then come back. All right. You'll notice it's basically a blank doc as you're going to go through with my PowerPoint here or my Google slide presentation, and you're just going to organize the notes based off of what I have up on my presentation, right? So, but because it's in Classroom, that means I have access to it without you having to share it. All right, so let's get into this here. All right, first little heading there that you can put up on your doc is cell theory. Remember, headings are all the way to the left margin. They do not have bullet points. If you want to bold it or underline it or use all caps to make it stand out a little bit, feel free to do that. All right. We talked about cell theory yesterday when we did the Pear Deck. So we're just going to write them down again. I changed the wording a little bit on here to make it a little bit easier. So, cell theory states the following. Number one, all living things are composed of cells. All living things are made of cells. So that was Schleiden and Schwann that we learned about yesterday in Germany. Schleiden being a botanist and studying plants. Schwann studying animals. kind of began the workings of cell theory, and that was the first one, that all living things are made of cells. Number 2, cells are the basic unit of structure and function in living things. Now, that last part in living things is actually very important because the basic unit of structure in just anything, the argument could be made, well, then you're talking about the atom, right? But if we're talking about the basic unit of structure and function in living things, now we're talking about cells. Because at everything that organism does in terms of its processes to be able to function and stay alive, it comes down to the basic unit of that cell. Yes, the cell is made of atoms. We're going to learn a little bit about amino acids later. And amino acids are part of those things that are in the cells for proteins and other things. They're just elements, right, that make up the cell. But when you're looking at the living thing and how is it living, yes, it's made of atoms, but the shape that it is and the function of all the cells in the body for all of those different processes that are crucial for survival, we look at the cells. And then last one, all cells come from other cells. Pre-existing cells was the term we used yesterday. So in this unit, it's pretty simple, right? Number 1, all living things are composed of cells. That's an easy one for us to knock out to learn in class by just using microscopes, right? By looking at different plants, looking at different animal cells to see the difference in the cells, but to see that, yes, these things are made of cells. That's easy. Number 2, basic unit of structure and function. That's a little bit more difficult. That's what most of this presentation is going to be, is going through and learning about all of these different parts that help cells be the basic unit of structure and function so that you understand them at a basic level. So we're going to kind of be very general when we talk about plant and animal cells here. And then if we have time at the end of the year, after we finish this unit, then we start talking about specialization, right? Of like, all right, well, you have nerve cells and you have skin cells and you have brain cells, and how are they a little bit different, and how do they know to be different, and how do they know what to do, all that stuff. All right, I mentioned this yesterday. This will be on a test, right? You will have to write out these 3 sentences. It will not be a multiple choice. You have to memorize these. This is what drives this entire unit. This is why they make us learn this in 6th grade, because the importance of understanding what cell theory is. All right, so before we get into the different types of cells and looking at plant cells and animal cells and then some bacteria cells, we have to first start with these 2 terms. Again, this can get difficult because these are not everyday language words. So you just kind of have to learn them as we go through. There's not like context clues to kind of help you. Sometimes you don't even know the root words because a lot of this stuff is based off of Latin and Greek, which were the, kind of like the official languages of science throughout many centuries. So prokaryote, eukaryote is how you pronounce those. Prokaryote, eukaryote, not yote. Okay, prokaryote, eukaryote. So a prokaryote is a type of cell, and prokaryotes are these types of cells that don't have a true nucleus. And we're going to learn what a nucleus is later in the week, but the nucleus is the hub to control all of the activities within a cell. Most importantly, there are things called chromosomes in the nucleus, and those kind of have all the directions for what's supposed to be going on in the cell. What type of cell it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to do, how it reproduces, all these different things. And so you might say, well, wait a minute, if a prokaryote doesn't have a nucleus, then how does it know what it's supposed to be doing and the activities and all that? Well, these organisms are simple. They're usually microscopic, sometimes only one cell. Unicellular is how we call that. And so not having a true nucleus isn't really a detriment to them because they're simple. Plus, notice it says no true nucleus. That's because there is genetic information floating in the cell. It's just not contained in this part of the cell called the nucleus. So it still has chromosomes in there that have the blueprints of what it's supposed to do. It's just not all housed together. But that's a big difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Eukaryotes do have a true nucleus. So these are the organisms that we're more familiar with because we see them. In fact, we are one, right? Plant, animal, protist, fungi, all are eukaryotic organisms, meaning they have eukaryote cells. So I always use the saying, you have eukaryote cells. You have eukaryote cells, animals, plants. In fact, when we look at plant cells and animal cells underneath the microscope, one of the easier things to see is the nucleus because it's one of the biggest parts of a cell. So we'll see that in there. All right, but we need to start with just understanding these two differences, even though we are going to focus and spend most of our time in this world here of eukaryotes. Not prokaryotes. We'll do a little bit of that, but we'll spend most of our time in eukaryotes. Okay, that's it for the notes. You can now move on to Edpuzzle, parts of the cell number 1. So the notes and that due in class. No chance to make them up outside of class, so get that done. That will be for an accuracy grade, the notes completion grade. Then you can work with someone on that huge extra credit word search till the end of class, and then you got to turn it back in. All right, I will be back tomorrow. I will see you guys then. Have a good day.